Hey, how's it going, everyone? And welcome to season 2, in a way, of Bound to Talk Football. I'm your host, Blake Walker. I'm alongside Paul Arridge. This is going to look different pretty much every week of the football season because this is not a live show. We're going to go live next week. But Jack Kearns, our man, is under the weather. So he could not do it this week. So in that case, we are going to be doing it just how we normally did it, our regular format and whatnot. Paul, good to see you again. Right. Paul and I are going to go through and talk about the season because we've been getting acclimated. I've been a lot on the volleyball side. I don't know about you, Paul, but you've been hitting football hard. We're going to talk about week 0. We're going to go through a lot to talk about here for the week. It's called Bound to Talk Football, so we're bound to talk about football somewhere in here.
Oh, yeah.
Paul, welcome to 2024, man. It has been a long summer. I will say, I'm going to ask for your opinion on this. The whole 2-year scheduling thing, not a fan. Not a fan. And the reason I say that is because the weeks leading up to the season, you're like, oh, here we go. We got a lot of big games coming up. This is already a very controversial take in the first 2 minutes. I didn't mean for this probably, but, we're excited about the season. And then I think, well, it's just the same games as last year. Yes, there are different storylines, but I'm like, it's just the same games from last year. You just flip the home and away, which is cool, and I'm glad everybody gets a home and away. But I kind of miss when it would just be every year, Like this spring is going to be awesome because we're going to see new schedules, and that's going to be hype. Like that's going to be awesome. But I don't know about you. I don't know, man. I just don't like the 2-year schedule. I just wish it was just different every year.
Yeah, I kind of agree. I think it'd be sweet at the beginning of the years just to or every year just to figure out who you're gonna play. I feel like kind of dies down the hype a little bit heading into at least that second year. Now, yeah, you said it. There's always gonna be like hype for certain games no matter what. But I don't know.
And some teams, I mean, they schedule. They're like, all right, we have these guys this year. It's going to be a great game with your guys this year. But then sometimes I feel like they don't think about the next year, which they shouldn't. I mean, that's not that there's a lot that goes into scheduling, but like there's some matchups this year that were like really, really good last year. And now this year it's like, ooh, this is not going to be a good game this year. And we'll talk about some of those. But yeah, I don't know. I just felt like that was on my mind. The heat has also been on my mind. It has been a scorcher here in Iowa recently. It's the corn sweat. They're saying it's the corn sweat. I ain't never heard of corn sweat, but apparently it's been a thing for a long time. But corn sweat is making it really hot and humid. The IHSAA put out like what do you call it? Like a chart that was like, here's light bulb humidity. It had light bulb in it. And I'm like, man, how does that work? I feel like you need a scientist to figure out how that works. Either way, I don't think a lot of schools had practice on Monday. And if they did, it was inside. But the heat could be an issue here in week 1.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like that last week of August is always just insanely hot. I don't know what it's got to be something geography.
In 3 weeks, it'll be 50.
Yep, exactly. It'll die down super fast. Before you know it, we'll have rain games, but the rain games will be like sleet rain games, and it'll be
we haven't really had a true snow game in a while, but we've had good rain games. I think of that Maquoketa Valley game last year with that picture that the Gazette took of that guy that was celebrating. He was covered in mud. That was really cool. But yeah, before we get into week 1 and talking about all that there is in 2024, we had week 0, and week 0 I wouldn't say is becoming more popular, but it's definitely becoming more apparent because the way week 0 works, if you don't know, most of the time, not all the time, but most of the time, schools look at their schedule and maybe a coach will be like, hey, of a certain team will be like, hey, my roster is small this year. I could only afford 5 injuries or something like that. And if I have a 6th injury, I can't field a team in week 6, week 7, week 8, or it could be week 3. You never know. So basically, schools create a week 0 game as a just in case, or most of the time, so they don't have to play week 8, usually an 8-player. The injury thing's usually a week, what would you say, like class 4A, 3A, 2A thing? Most of the time. 8-player kind of likes having that gap. because it's exhausting. I mean, injuries happen in 8-player, and they can devastate teams in 8-player. We've seen that time and time again. So that's just kind of what it was. So we had week 0. Paul, talk us through our only upper class game. Atlantic took on Cedar Rapids, or not Cedar Rapids, Council Bluffs, Thomas Jefferson. You got to watch that game a little bit. Atlantic, both teams, really, honestly, pretty impressed.
Yeah, I mean, both teams offensively looked insanely good. Especially, I like Council Bluffs Jefferson passing game in this game. Now, Atlantic was dealing with some injuries I've heard about in the secondary, and I think even quarterback. So that kind of explains their kind of dynamic. This game was full rushing attack mode, 10 yards a carry this game, 365 total yards on the ground. Just a amazing game in the trenches for Atlantic.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a good start to the year for the Trojans. I thought that was a really good way to start, and that's not an easy team by any means. Any team from on the eastern or western side of Iowa, the coast, if you will, of Iowa, that's always going to be a fun matchup. So good for Atlantic. In 8-player, we had some wild games. Baxter took down Springville, big win for the Bolts. Trailed in that game by like more than 14, I think. At one point in the second half, Baxter comes back and wins. The big game everybody was talking about, Paul, was BGM and Iowa Valley. It's funny because I was so glad statistics didn't let us down. Statistics said this was going to be a high-scoring game. History has said it, and it didn't fail. 76-67. Wild game for Iowa Valley, who seems to be on top of this rivalry, if you will.
Yeah, it's a high-powered offense. Sophomore Nolan Kriegel, 10 touchdowns in one game to start the season. Do we dare do the on-pace numbers for 100 touchdowns?
I mean, we could. Not a lot of people have cracked it. Like, if you hit 100 touchdowns, I don't care if it's 8-player, whatever. Usually it's only 8-player, but that's high priority. I'd be curious to go through the last 10 years and see all the guys who have won or had over 100 touchdowns. I guarantee it's names that you'd know. Did Burgess, the Montezuma kid, I feel like he had over 100.
Yeah, I feel like he was at least close. He had a stupid amount of touchdowns.
Yeah, like 98.
Imagine being Bo Burns in this situation, dropping 8 touchdowns, or maybe I think it might actually been 9. 9 touchdowns and losing is tough. Bo Burns, if you didn't know, last year led in passing touchdowns, and I think honestly just total touchdowns. So
yeah, I think in those situations, like, you just wake up the next morning and you're like, we scored 67 points and we lost. But to them, football might be just different. I mean, that's just kind of how it is. Like, you go in thinking you're going to be able to play defense, and then after a quarter, you're like, okay, we're not going to be able to play defense, so this is just going to be a shootout. So I don't know. I don't know. It's interesting. 8-player is its own animal. I know some people don't like it, but I love it. I think it's what else are these schools going to do, man? I mean, it's not their fault that they can't field a bigger team. This is just what they have to work with. There's 7-player football. There's 6-player football in the United States. So it's like, I don't know. I like 8-player for what it's worth. The only other big game, Paul, that really stood out, Waco took down Central City, 2 very good teams from last year. Didn't make the Dome, but 2 very talented teams. 51-36 was the final score. Waco gets past Central City. Clayton Miller, 3 touchdowns, 157 yards. A lot of seniors on the field for both these 2 teams, but it looks like Central City just couldn't pass the ball.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it was just kind of purely a rushing attack. Matthew Klosterman for Central City had a pretty huge day, almost 200 total yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns, but it looks like Waco was just a balanced team.
Not to mention, Central City scored 24 points in the fourth quarter, so it made it a little bit "quote unquote" closer than you thought it was. But
yeah, there might have been some garbage time stats going on there, but overall, I mean,
in 8-player, there ain't much garbage time. That's pretty much you got to play all every minute. So that's pretty cool.
Looks like I'm wondering if I'm box score looking right now. I feel like turnovers had to have been pretty. No, just 2 turnovers. So forced 2.
That's not bad.
Good defense, honestly. I feel like 8 because 24 points if you negate that 12 in 2 shutout quarters.
Yeah.
Good stuff.
So not bad at all. I like week 0. Hope it sticks around. I think it will stick around for a long time. That's your week 0 recap. Let's jump into this year. Well, this year. We are into this year. Let's jump into this week, and we'll go class by class. We'll start with 5A, work our way down, 7 whole classes. I guarantee we'll have 8 in 5 years. Just kind of the thing as the schools get bigger. But we'll start with Class 5A, where this year, Paul, I don't know, and you kind of have it on our notes here, don't know if there's a true number 1. I think Valley is high on a lot of people's list. Radio Iowa put Ankeny at number 1. That's a choice. So, I don't know. Thoughts on 5A this year? We'll run through the matchups here in a little bit, but boy, it's up for grabs. Southeast Polk, your defending state champions. They're going for 4 straight. That's going to be tough.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. They lost about, I think, 18 out of 22 starters, which is tough. Now, we know Southeast Polk has been like a mecca for high school football, so they'll probably replenish and have talented players, but it just comes down to having talented enough players to win in the highest class in Iowa. Valley, by far, kind of leads in talent returning / explosive talent. Valley's always kind of been a team the past 3 years to be ranked highly or thought highly of during the preseason. So we'll see. Injuries have bugged them before. I mean, they went through 3 quarterbacks last year.
Drake DeGroot realistically will be the starter, which is amazing. You know, his story is amazing.
Has that starting job, and he I honestly am really high on him. I didn't have him as top 10 quarterback heading into the season, but sophomore year heading in a semifinal game against Southeast Polk, and he performed. They almost beat Southeast Polk, who had a god squad last year, it felt like, especially on defense. So Valley, their receiving core with Jaden McGregory, Zay Robinson, and some other wide receivers that return, they're going to be pretty high power on offense, and they have Darius Mason also returning on offense. So we know they're going to have talent. It's Valley, their biggest class or biggest school in the state. So it's kind of
well. So we might as well. We started on Southeast Polk and Valley, so we'll just kind of run through the games and just kind of talk about the teams as we go. So that is a week 1 matchup, Southeast Polk versus Valley. This is at Southeast Polk. This should be a really good game. I'm going to assume Holden Hansen gets the QB nod at Southeast Polk unless something changed. He was the backup last year, and he was good last year. From the time and the moments that I saw from Southeast Polk, I thought he was pretty good. The biggest thing, whoever's going to be at quarterback, is that they have a weapon that they can rely on, like Ankeny relied on their weapon last year. Sam Zelenovich is back, one of the state's top wide receivers, in my opinion, the top wide receiver in the state of Iowa. Sam Zelenovich is back. His wide receiver core is not back. His tight end core gone. His offensive line gone. They literally lost their entire offensive line. But based on some of the pictures I've seen, they're going to be just fine. But Sam Zelenovich is back, and I think whoever ends up at quarterback for Southeast Polk will be going his way a lot. So I'll be very curious to see how Sam deals with doubles or, however they throw at him. And like you said, Valley, you explained it well, but this is a good week 1 matchup between these two guys.
Yep, kind of just a quick see what you got for Southeast Polk and Valley. Let's see how legit you're going to be this year, because we've kind of been waiting for that. Valley, they went 6-6 last year. They did make it to the semis, so they were still really good. But it's just we're waiting on that year where they're like the top team in the state consensus.
Right. We'll go to your side of the metro here. Ankeny and Ankeny Centennial, the Battle of Ankeny. When has this game not been good? The last 3, 4, 5 years. Oh, my goodness. I don't think we've had a snoozer. It has been every single game between these two has been phenomenal. Last year's state semifinal was Big Ten football at its finest, and I loved every second of it. Ankeny defeated Ankeny Centennial. This is interesting because our group chat was arguing about this, making their picks. Ankeny returns their quarterback, which is big. I believe Erlmeyer came back. Is that correct for Ankeny?
Mm-hmm.
And then Ankeny Centennial lost a lot. I don't doubt Ankeny Centennial one bit, but man, they lost a lot on both offense and defense.
Yeah, Ankeny's big kind of thing right now is their rushing attack coming back. They returned 2 1,000-yard rushers. You don't really ever see that much in 5A. Usually, you're not going to have 2 backs with 1,000 yards unless you. Last time I could think of that as Valley with Creighton Mitchell and I forgot Jaden Williams.
Yeah.
So you're not really going to see that much. They lose Devin Akers, obviously, who was insane for them last year, was a game-breaking wide receiver. But Earl Meyer is a really capable and good wide receiver. And then they also returned some key guys in the secondary, Samuel Sandvig and Kenneth Voss. Those guys are coming back. And Andrew Hasse, I believe, is going to play college ball, and he's on the D line. So they definitely have the edge returning-wise. But Centennial does add Malachi Kirby onto that team from Waukee, a 4-star, I believe, defensive end / kind of tight end athlete. So that's huge for them. And they also have Fred Jackson's son, Braden Jackson, back. Quarterback will be a question mark for them, but we know Centennial is kind of one of those teams that usually just turns out a talented team no matter the situation.
Yeah, I agree. I'm anxious to see what happens. I think they'll be, just kind of one of those teams that flies under the radar. But this game, it does not matter who's favored. I mean, we have seen before a team that Centennial team came in and we're like, should easily win. And then Ankeny wins. Like, this is just in every sport they play. It does not matter who is on the team or how well you think they're going to play.
Really a true rivalry game.
And I think it's awesome at week 1. I kind of hope it stays at week 1 because I just think it's such a good early test.
I think there's 1 year it was week 2, which was weird. It was I think it was my senior year. Yeah, it was week 2, which was weird. It felt weird because we're just so used to that kind of. You get a whole off season of just talk brewing about who's going to win. It's always, I feel like, it just feels like every year it's a situation where one team is supposed to be really good.
Yeah,
Anthony.
The other team's not,
and the other team's supposed to be has fallen off a little bit, but then the other team comes out, plays out of their mind, makes a good game. So, yep, if you want an entertaining football game, week 1, this is probably the game to be guaranteed a good game.
Johnston Waukee Northwest. This is the game called. Let's just see what we have. I really don't know about either of these teams. Waukee Northwest, I've been tough on Waukee Northwest in the past, but I tell you what, they lost a lot. I think they're starting a sophomore quarterback from what I've heard, so going young. But I don't know, man. I think Will Nuss, we've said it for years, could be the difference maker in this one. We'll see what he returns on the wide receiver side. Obviously lost a lot, but I think Johnston's got to get back to their roots. The defense has to be really good. This is what we saw out of Johnston 2 years ago when they made it to the Dome. But I don't know. This is a game that somebody's going to walk away and be like, all right, here's what we got. And then the other team will be like, man, this is the game that you hope you win looking back on it in week 8 during the RPI.
Yeah, kind of just a weird one because, I mean, it's high school football. There's going to be years where you just don't have people coming back, and there's feels like these big school teams just lose like a bunch of their starters. But both these teams have interesting, like a couple guys returning that could be huge, different
Maverick Inman coming back for Northwest is huge. That kid is unbelievable.
Yep, and a reliable target just to have for that sophomore quarterback that might start just right away because it's going to be really tough to come out week 1 and play a team that's just we know will be good. At least just be good. Will Nuss, from his sophomore to junior year, we saw a little bit of a drop, and that's because I just feel like the receiving core he had his sophomore year was really good, and Jacob Simpson was a sophomore. We know how good he is. So the big key for them is just who do we have at wide receiver this year that's going to win game or go out and win games for us because Will Nuss will be able to get him the ball. He has a terrific arm talent. It just is kind of dependent on that and how their run game will be with D'Angelo Barku comes back. He's a capable running back. It's kind of a wait and see. There's no really good way at projecting right now how good these teams will be.
Right. I think it'll be a good game. I'm excited to see what happens. I know that one will be on the Central Iowa Sports Network. Cedar Falls plays Prairie, two teams that lost a bit from last year. New field for Cedar Falls. The first game not at the Unidome. First home game not at the Unidome. It'll be just outside the Unidome. So excited to see how that one goes for both Cedar Falls and Prairie. Another good Eastern Iowa game, Pleasant Valley and Bettendorf. If you remember, Pleasant Valley went through the year and their only loss was that random week 1 blowout to Bettendorf. So I'm curious to see if the Dogs come back on top and do it again this year, because every year, Paul, you and I hear it every year, like Bettendorf can be good. So I'm curious to see if the Dogs have anything here against the Spartans, or if Pleasant Valley, who didn't return a lot, will have anything here on the Eastern Iowa side.
Yeah, Eastern Iowa is looking kind of just interesting this year. Is kind of just a weird group of teams. It's usually, I feel like we can kind of pick out a team every year in Eastern Iowa that we know is going to be really good. Maybe it's Kennedy this year, but
I kind of like Iowa City High.
Yeah, I like Iowa City High a lot too. I was actually going to mention them, but yeah, the Pleasant Valley loses quite a bit. They'll have Joey Van Wetzinga on the D line and whatever other position they have. I'm assuming they'll have them both ways. Who's a D1 lineman heading to Iowa, so that's good for them. But Bettendorf honestly lost quite a bit too. They've got a good amount of defense returning, which is good for them. But I mean, I don't know if you remember last year, but Bettendorf kind of came out of the blue. We weren't really ready for them to be back to being really good again. And they had that weird playoff situation where they played week 9 and then played the same opponent week 9 or in the first round of playoffs. Sorry. Yep. Yeah, it was just a kind of a weird end of the season, but I think they'll be pretty decent this year. This rivalry also kind of never disappoints. It's kind of a big one out there in the East.
I bring up City High because I'm aboard the Bobby Bacon train. I think the bacon is sizzling over in Iowa City High. I think I don't know. I like the kid. From what I saw huddle stuff last year, I think Iowa City. You just never know. You never know with the little Hawkeyes. They made it state a couple of years ago, which was awesome. But the schedule seems like it fits in the realm that they can do well. I have no idea how they did over in Joliet last week. I know they had a kind of a scrimmage / game against one of Illinois' best teams, but I don't know. I'm pretty high on City High. Who did they play this week? Did they play this week? I don't think they played this week.
Iowa City Liberty, I believe.
Iowa City West is Iowa City Liberty.
If it's like last year, it'd be Iowa City Liberty, I think.
Oh, maybe
I'll double check it right now.
Yeah, we'll check it. While he's doing that, I'll segue into our final game of 5A we wanted to talk about. Dowling Catholic and Cedar Rapids Kennedy. Shout out Dowling Catholic. Changed their logo today. That's crazy. Because I was thinking back, I'm like, that logo has been a thing for a long time. And then finally, out of the blue, they're like, all right, here we go. Here's the new one. And it's basically pretty much the old one. They just kind of changed a couple things around, took the background out of it.
A little modern. Just went a
little modern, as we expected, simplify it a little bit. But they get home against Cedar Rapids Kennedy. This is not a Saturday game this year. I think Dowling's the biggest. What do you got? Iowa City High?
Oh.
You got anything?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Iowa City High does play the Liberty first week, just at home. I think it's weird because they played Joliet or whatever.
Joliet Catholic, so that means our system or something was wrong in scheduling because it says Iowa City West plays Liberty. Interesting.
Weird.
Anyway, so Dowling Kennedy. Boy, Dowling might be the biggest question mark this year, easily. Here's the thing about Dowling. They've gone 4 years now without winning a title. What's up with that? Didn't even make the state tournament last year. It's a weird world we live in where Dowling Catholic, I think, finally is the underdog. And maybe they like it that way because probably should have made it state last year. Ankeny catches them, just caught him. Not at a bad time. Ankeny just flat out played Dowling Catholic. They lost a lot on offense. They got to find a new quarterback. Tom Wilson's son will be the lead wide receiver. Their offensive line lost a lot. I think they're starting a freshman at a tackle position for the first time from what I've heard in school history. But that defense, Paul, is exactly what I think could really help Dowling Catholic this year. But they're playing a high-powered Cedar Rapids Kennedy offense.
Yep, it'll be interesting. Kennedy is set up pretty well for this game with Vinny coming back, who is probably the best quarterback in 5A or best returning quarterback in 5A. Sorry, yes. But really does exist. He was amazing last year. They also returned Jacob Doyle, at running back. So they've got good returning guys this year that will play a big part. They kind of can lean on them. Dowling, we do know for a fact this defense is going to be really good. They have Dylan Manning back.
They returned like 3 sophomores on the front line and linebackers.
Yep. They returned Isaac Beaver, Mason Beaver. Those two guys are just going to game wreck up middle. It'll be their defense. We know for a fact will be good. We can kind of always expect that with Dowling. What it'll come down to is offense. Offense these past couple of years has just not been there.
Rashad Davis is back. That's huge.
Rashad Davis is the best running back returning for sure, in my opinion.
Yes.
And he was insane last year. It's just, when you have to only run the ball or have someone where you just have to lean on them running the ball, one injury could easily happen. And two, you're going to make games close just from the time of possession. Games are going to be way more grit and grind. Going to be tough, especially in the CIML. You play too many one-possession games, you're just going to get caught now.
Right.
There's a path of winning all of those. Southeast Polk literally did
it. Did it last year.
But they were also had insane talent. So it'll be interesting. This game is honestly way more of a toss-up. Last year I was pretty confident of Dowling, but this year it's interesting just because quarterback is so big.
I think Dowling's really glad they get it at home. I think if it was in Kingston, I would have said Kennedy might have it, but I still probably roll with Dowling. Because knowing everyone else's thing, Dowling probably found a quarterback who's a sophomore on their JV roster that was a stud. And we don't know. We'll just have to see. That's why week 0 or week 1's so up in the air, because Paul and I could be talking like crazy because we don't know who's yet to be up, like who's going to be the star. Who's going to surprise everyone? So that's kind of the cool thing. So that's Class 5A. That's what's happening in week 1. It's going to be a fun week. We'll have a recap for you next week when we hop back on. We're already 27 minutes in, so we're rolling here. We'll jump to Class 4A, where right now we'll just kind of walk through, just kind of see what we got. ADM and Newton. I was looking at ADM's roster, Paul. It's a rebuilding year. Might be a retool. You never know. But they lost a lot. And they play a Newton team that I think could surprise some people. The Klein brothers on Newton, both wide receiver, defense, running back. I really like the Klein brothers at Newton. I think the Cardinals win this week 1 game. And ADM, I just don't know. They lost a lot. I think they return one of their better running backs. But other than that, the Tigers lost a lot.
Yep, just that's the simple way to put it. It's kind of the week 1 thing where we just have to see what players kind of stepped up that didn't really have a shot at playing last year just because of how talented they were. ADM, man, that sucked last year. They were
heartbreaking.
Destined to be a really, really good. Yep, that's heartbreaking. Having 2 of your best players succumb to injury is just insane. But I also like Newton in this one. I completely agree with you. They just return a little bit more talent, and frankly, week 1 of Iowa high school football, that's the best you're going to get with projecting unless you are watching practices, which I don't know if they really allow that much. So we just don't really know yet with a lot of these teams that lose so much talent.
Dallas St. Grimes takes on Gilbert. I'm going to ask one simple question. Is Gilbert making the playoffs this year?
They do return about everyone.
Statistics say Gilbert should be one of the better teams in the state. And I'm excited for them. We gave them so much crap last year because they went 6-0. Everyone's like, oh my gosh, weren't they number 1 in the RPI? And then it just fell apart. They lost their last 3 games. Barely lost. The Pella game, I think, was just a heartbreaker. This team has the pieces to make a run. And if anything, they have thought about last year all year long. I say they make it, and I say they're a top 8 team. I say they're hosting a playoff game by the end of the postseason.
Yep. We haven't talked about it yet, but 4A is a murderer's row this year. We have no idea compared to the Big 12 this year in football. We really don't have a clue. Every game feels kind of up in the air. Like you're
not high on Utah in the Big 12. What's up with that?
Well, I'm high on Utah, but I just know there's plenty of teams in that conference that can.
West Virginia, Utah, Iowa State, yeah.
Yeah, So, I mean, it'll be interesting. I think Gilbert has a pretty good shot. Now they got to take care of business against DCG. That's like their big
Which
first
they won
game.
last year
Yep.
by 2
And
points.
yep, by 2, but hey, they return way more talent this year, and I'm pretty confident in Gilbert being a good team. They just have to snag. We talked about it last year. One of these ending
Have
3,
to. Have to.
Bondurant, Newton, Pella. You
And
have
it's
to win
tough.
one of those games. Now they
It's
had
tough.
Carlisle close game last year, and they had obviously we just talked about DCG and Carroll, but they need to win one of those games. Now I think Bondurant
Lost a
far
lot.
they lost a lot. They'll be a little bit weaker this year, at least returning wise. Once again, you don't really know, but that's the team I kind of circle and be like, you go win. I think they get them at home now too. They also had to play 2 of those games on the road at the end, which
Yep.
sucks.
Yep.
So
That's the fan base that will be very loud and proud. I'm excited to see what Gilbert does.
oh yeah, sure our coworkers won't give us.
Yeah. Lewis Central takes on Harlan. This has been one of the best games year in and year out. I mean, this game, even last year, where Harlan was just kind of meh, still good, made the playoffs, but still just kind of hung around. This year, though, I don't know if it's going to be as good as it's always been. The defending state champions lose a bit, but they also return a bit, including their quarterback. So, yes, Lewis Central is the favorite, but they're not the heavy favorite by any means. Harlan lost a lot. So, I don't know. I'm just very curious to see what the little Cyclones can do. But it's Harlan. They're not going to go 4-5. They're still going to go at worst 5-4, probably.
Yep, that's one of the things. They're just coaching. We know
Insane.
Coaching in Hartling, they're not going to be. It's kind of a feeling with Dowling, like where they maybe have lost their edge a little bit, but you know they're still going to be good. They aren't going to drop off and be like bad. They're not a typical public school team. They're usually going to always be good. They're not going to have gaps years of kind of rebuild or retooling. But this year, I just think they have a huge task ahead of them. This is a Lewis Central team that returns Brady Hetzel, who arguably one of the best quarterbacks in the state, and then they return plenty more after that. Brody Patlin, Chance Chappelle, and these are all guys that were huge on their offense. They lose a lot in the wide receiving core, but I think having Hetzel back kind of negates that just because he'll find anyone. But this is a team that's going to be pretty hard to beat in 4A. They did lose quite a bit of tackles on defense, but I mean, it's Lewis Central. We've known them to rebuild and retool. This is kind of a battle of 2 dynasties of 4A and 3A.
Yeah, it is.
But
which Harlan is a 3A school, so we can't count them as 4A, but yes.
Yeah, I think it's just kind of we might see Harlan kind of lose their step that they kind of had in this rivalry where they were able to kind of have guys that could compete. I mean, they had Cade Sears last year, who we knew was kind of the last of that, those Harlan teams that were like insane that they didn't haul. So
never know. Could be famous last words, but yeah.
Play the game. We play the game.
Yeah, that's why we play the game.
Box scores all the time.
Winterset takes on Creston. I like Winterset. It's not just my bias because I've called 2 of their seasons of softball where they won the state tournament, but I will say Winterset returns their quarterback and running back, and Creston, who had the magical season last year, lost a lot. Like that whole roster, for the most part, not coming back. Lost a lot of their receiving core. Brendan Hayes is gone. Cale Turner's gone. Creston will be in a rebuilding year, so I think Winterset gets a good start this year. I'm excited to see how those 2 teams face out. But Creston, I think, is in the same boat as Harlan, personally.
Yeah, I'd agree right there. I think that was kind of their go for it year. Creston will it'll be interesting to see how they retool and rebuild. They're usually a team that is like a pretty good team, no matter what, but we'll see how they handle. That's an insane amount of talent to lose. They lose starting wide receiver. They lose Brennan Hayes, who's running back, rushed for 1,700 yards, and then Cale Turner, who had a ridiculous season as well. So a lot to lose there, but we'll see. I think I kind of agree with you. Just it's hard week 1 to throw these people in and be like, you have to compete at the level of these guys who have played for 2-3 years. So I like Winterset kind of starting off with a nice little win here.
Just kind of scrolling through the rest of them. North Scott will be interesting this year. They lost Kyle Girardi, but they returned their running back and their wide receiver, so it should be fun to watch how the Lancers go. Pella Ballard, I think will be interesting. Pella lost their quarterback, have a little bit they have to retool, but I think they're going to be pretty good this year. And Ballard returns their quarterback and their top tackler, who had 112 tackles last year, Jackson Watcha. So I'm excited to see how the Bombers do this year, especially, with their schedule. Dallas Center Grimes, Humboldt's on that schedule. Creston opened the year with Pella, who they beat last year. If you remember, Pella was like the surprise team last year. They upset Xavier randomly. They took down Bondurant, albeit Titus Cram got hurt, but Pella was already up way big on that game. So, the Dutch could be interesting this season. That's for sure.
Yeah, I agree. They were long removed from the time of Pella being the
dynasty,
team, the dynasty. They're a school or a team that I feel like kind of always at least has someone that's really extremely talented, and then coaching wise, they usually are pretty good.
Right.
I like Pella kind of week one here a little bit. It's just tough because I think it's at Ballard, and Ballard returns a lot of talent. Was Ballard the team last year that had just a defense that was silly? They had silly games with their defense. Oh yeah, I see North Polk 7-6. North Polk 7-6.
Yeah.
And then they had 13-14 Humboldt. So they had kind of
they gave up. Yeah, then they gave up 48 to Creston. Yeah. So I don't know, but with a 112 tackle guy, I'd say that goes pretty far. So.
Oh yeah, and then honestly, you have such a big advantage. I feel like in 4A this year, if you're returning really quarterback and some position players. So
that's a good trade-off to two teams that don't return a lot. Bondurant and North Polk play week one. This is the equivalent of Johnston Waukee Northwest, in my opinion. North Polk was pretty much all seniors last year, if I remember correctly. Made it to the Dome. Good for them. Made it to the Dome, which was awesome. Bondurant lost Titus Cram halfway through the year. Didn't really seem to matter. They kind of figured things out. They do return their quarterback, Jordan Ryle. So I'm excited to see how Bondurant does in that aspect. But this is, again, one of those teams and one of those games that's all right, let's just see what we got and hope it works.
Yep. We can't really tell right now. The biggest thing is they return quarterback, which is huge for them. Now, here's my little take on this is that since they had those injuries last year, they got to maybe plug in some people in the depth chart that normally wouldn't get to play in high pressure games, and they kind of got some nice experience there just because they had almost kind of similar to ADM, just a terrible injury luck. So it'll be interesting to see if some of these guys that maybe got to squeak into these later year games kind of have that experience to just go out and play. But yeah, North Polk just loses a ton of seniors, but they were a great team last year.
Yeah. Always have to mention Norwalk Carlisle. This game is usually in the hundreds in the score. I'm just kidding, but it's always pretty high. Norwalk lost Aiden Harder, their gunslinger. They do return their running back and wide receiver, at least Carlisle does. So I'm excited to see how Carlisle does in that game. Keep an eye on that one. Western Dubuque, West Delaware. If you remember, Paul, West Delaware was the surprise team at the end of last year. Made that run in the postseason. Kind of went on a train of whoa, check out West Delaware. I don't know what they return, but never count out West Delaware or Western Dubuque when it comes to these type of games.
Yep, these guys return a good amount of production from last year. We got Tanner Anderson back, and I believe Brent Yankovic back for West Delaware. So
that's true. Yeah, I forgot Yankovic was just a sophomore.
Yeah, so this is going to be a pretty crazy game. Last year, Western Dubuque handled West Delaware, but I think it's a lot more easier because someone named Grant Glosser isn't playing for Western Dubuque Bobcats.
Well, and West Delaware figured things out halfway through the year. That's what led to it. They were like, "Oh, we got something here." So yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Good point.
Yep, it'll be an interesting game. This is a very kind of unpredictable week one game, just because. I'd maybe give the edge a little bit to returning talent, maybe to West Delaware, but Western Dubuque usually is a school that can easily be solid. So we'll have to see.
Absolutely. And then finally, what should be a good one? It wasn't a good one last year, but it'll be a good one this year. Xavier and Waverly Shell Rock. If you remember Waverly Shell Rock 2 years ago, really good. Waverly Shell Rock last year, toughest schedule in the state. Not very good. Only won 3 games. But most of that team comes back. Wesley Hubbard, quarterback, he's back. Ethan Bibler, running back, he's back. Their top tackler, Charlie Kramer, he's back. Go Hawks might have something going here. The only thing is that Xavier lost a lot, but Xavier just retools.
Yeah. I think they kind of Waverly Shell Rock kind of gets an interesting thing here because yes, that schedule last year was ridiculous. They played probably out of the top 10 teams in the state, they played 5 of them, 6 of them maybe even, which is ridiculous. That usually never happens in high school football. I actually really like Waverly Shell Rock week 1 here just because of how much returning talent they have. They do, I believe, go to Xavier. Kind of sucks for them. But I think they have a good shot. Once again, you've said it. Xavier just retools and rebuilds, and they have a really good scheme for high school football. Just pound the rock, kind of pro-style Iowa. Go get rushing yards, play action type offense. But Waverly Shell Rock returns quite a bit of talent, and they're usually a solid team. So I think you're giving them a nice start into the season.
I agree. I think it'll be a fun one. Let's go to 3A. There's some good games in 3A. Who did you put as our game of the week for 3A?
Algona Spirit Lake.
I was going to say. I was just about to say that. I don't remember who I picked for that game.
This game's going to be ridiculous.
I think Jack didn't put that game on the thing. Talk about this game while I see who I picked.
Well, obviously we know Algona's returning 4-star quarterback or 3-star quarterback, Alex Mansky, 4-star if you're going off on 3, I believe, who was sensational last year. He totaled 700 yards on the ground with 12 touchdowns and then also threw for 1,700 yards with 17 touchdowns. Only 3 picks on the year. I remember he hadn't thrown a pick for most of that year or most of the year too, which is pretty ridiculous. They also are returning another D1, Jack Limbaugh, I believe, is returning, who another D1 guy that's going to, I believe, Iowa State. So they're returning quite a bit of talent here. And they were really close last year, like extremely close. They had an insane game with Clear Lake. They lost to Sioux Center eventually, but if they win that Clear Lake game, who's telling how this season goes? Because RPI would have been huge for them in that situation. But we know now it's switch sides. Spirit Lake. Blake, if you want to talk about Spirit Lake and how much they're returning.
So they brought it back pretty much everyone. Their quarterback is back. Let me pull this up real quick. Also, by the way, Jack put the 3A game of the week as Harlan Lewis Central, 4A Xavier and Waverly Shell Rock. I feel like we got to change that.
Yeah, we'll talk about it. I mean, there's a lot of good games. It works either way.
Yeah, it does. Spirit Lake returns their top passer, Caden Lunt, 2,311 yards, 24 touchdowns. They return their running back, William Ditzworth, 825 yards, 14 touchdowns. And they return their wide receiver, Dylan Stecker, 994 yards and 14 touchdowns. So basically, Spirit Lake is set to go. And they made it to the state last year, fell short to Central Lyon, George Little Rock. But which they
led
a
really good game, right?
I think they led like 14-0. Yeah, and then they kind of blew it. Yeah. But
West Lyon, they throw a Hail Mary practically and score a tutty on then.
I think this game will be great. I think we should put this game on the player of the game of the week thing because it's going to be so hard to pick.
I mean, we could slot Lewis Central, Arlen and 4A, and then 3A.
Yeah. Nothing against Xavier Waverly Shell Rock, but I think that'll be a good one. So keep an eye on Spirit Lake Algona, Alec Mensky, big year for the coach as well, second-year head coach at Algona. So excited to see what he can do. Williamsburg heads to the Little Rose Bowl to take on West Branch. I don't know what West Branch returns. Williamsburg lost a bit, but Race Heitman's back, man. and he's going to be one of the best athletes in the state of Iowa.
Yep. I feel like Race Heitman kind of last year, we saw kind of a situation where he didn't get to kind of have stupid stats. Like, these lower class guys just have stats that are like, what is going on? But this year, I think he gets a chance to be like, have insane production on offense and defense.
You think they'll
This
put him
team
at
loses.
quarterback? Like, do you think he'll play wide receiver? Or you think they're going to put him at quarterback?
I don't know. I think they're fine in a lot of ways. They have, Bryson Wetjen looks like he's back. I don't know what they'll do with quarterback. Last year was weird because they went athlete at one point of the season. They went, I want our athlete to be our best athlete to be quarterback, Derek Wieskop. Then they went Kellen Cockrell. They like switched every now and then. It was weird.
Wetjen has to be the younger brother of the Wetjen in Iowa, isn't it? I feel like it has to be.
Yeah, I think. I mean, there's Braylon.
There's not many Wetjens in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, there's Braylon Wetjen and Bryson Wetjen.
For West Branch, Brennan Dale was a sophomore quarterback last year. Yeah.
Are there 4 Wetjens on this team?
Brennan Dale is back at quarterback for West Branch. That's pretty much it for the Bears, at least on the offensive side and their top tacklers. Brennan had over 1,000 yards total, both passing and rushing combined, and it looks like 18 touchdowns. So Brennan Dale could be interesting. And that's a West Branch team that finished the year off not too bad. They only lost 21-0 to MFL Marmac. They beat Durant. They only lost to Wilton by 4. They beat Regina. So West Branch is a very tough team. I wouldn't sleep on it if I was Williamsburg in week 1, that's for sure.
Yep. You just kind of saw last year. I feel like that's a Williamsburg team that will go down in history over there. So West Branch, I wouldn't think too much about last year.
Yeah, I'm with you. Nevada plays West Marshall. Keep an eye on the Cubs.
This is your team.
Yeah, this is my team, the Cubs. I know they returned their quarterback. I'm looking at it right here. This is just how this podcast is. We work on the fly. Yeah, they do. So Connor King is back, 1,521 yards in the air, 20 touchdowns, 21 total touchdowns on the year. They lose their wide receiver, Kyle Kingsbury, and they lose Kaysen Stevenson. But Jackson Burlage is back on the D line, or at least on defense. 100 tackles last year for Burlage. He's a junior. So keep an eye on the Cubs. I think Nevada, they've been good. They got a good coaching staff. I'm excited to see how they do. West Marshall's always a tough opponent. Solon. Can we talk about Solon? Solon at Assumption. If you remember, Solon did not have a fun time at the Unidome last year. They took down or faced Williamsburg, got to the state tournament, which was already a big deal. But the Spartans could be some people are thinking they could be a good team. They got crushed by Assumption last year, 34-7. But Solon could be interesting this year.
Yep. Solon, honestly, I would pick them as kind of depends on how high you are on Williamsburg, but they're kind of my preseason favorite or up there, at least in this class. Ty Bell returning at quarterback. They've also got Conlon Poynton. Names are going to be tough in this because
Brett White is a big loss, though, on the defensive side of the ball.
They lose Brett White, who was amazing last year on defense, but we'll have to see how they replenish. They lose a lot on defense. It's just that offensive. They kind of have some room on offensive return. But Assumption also, they're usually a team that can kind of just throw out a good team, but they lost quite a bit returning. Wide receiver 1, running back, and Jake Timmons from last year at quarterback. So I like Solon, but we'll have to see how this plays out.
Solon has the best uniforms in the state. I must say it. I'm just looking at these photos underneath the stories tab for them. The matte black, man, this just goes so hard. Just phenomenal.
I'm going to raise you and say that their rivals, Williamsburg, have the best.
Well, that's the thing. I'm like West Delaware, the teams that this group of teams, oh, man, they don't miss. Man,
what conference is that?
Well, that's the WAMAC. I don't know the district, but that WAMAC conference has a lot of good. So. Did we talk about Assumption? What Assumption return?
I briefly mentioned that they just kind of lost quite a bit, at least production-wise on offense. Defensively, they returned some guys. They returned the top tackler, but
I forgot they lost that shootout with West Delaware in the playoffs, 58-45.
Yeah. The Brent Yankovic game, I believe.
Yeah,
Is this
yeah,
one? Yes, seven tutties. Oh,
yep.
go Brent Yankovic.
Insane, man. I think 3A is going to be a lot of fun.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, keep an eye on 3A. Again, if we're not talking about your team in week 1, it's because we just don't know a lot yet. We'll know a lot after week 1. I think we really will. So, I don't know. Keep
Yes.
an eye on that. Down to 2A. Bishop Heelan and Kemper. Bishop Heelan's a 3A school, but
Mm-hmm.
Kemper Catholic, I think, surprised a lot of people last year. Bishop Heelan obviously made it to the state title game. I'm pretty sure Bishop Heelan lost a lot. I'm checking on Kemper right now. Brock Batting, he does return along with their top tackler, Kent Sanders. Brock Batting, 2,063 yards, 30 touchdowns passing last year for Kemper.
Yep. Kemper last year was interesting. They had DJ Vanahemi, however you say that last name. He went to Iowa. He was a kind of a guy that we thought was quarterback there, but they ended up switching up. And Brock Batting had a great year. He's a big time basketball player, but I mean, he lit it up on the turf as well. They're a team that looks like they could be really good this year, returning a decent amount of talent, and then especially obviously a return quarterback, and that's always one of the biggest positions that we look at. Bishop Heelan, Casey Thomas, right off the bat, really good linebacker. He's probably the top 3 linebacker in the state. But yes, they lose a lot from that team. Now I think just Bishop Heelan, I think is just going to be good. Flat out, this doesn't matter. Yeah. They're always going to be good, but it just depends how good. Last year, obviously, they made the state title game. So, kind of an up in the air game. I don't really know what to call here. I like Bishop Heelan, partly just because, one, they're a bigger school, and two, athletically and scheme wise, I think they're usually just really hard to beat. But
right. Yeah, I don't know. It's going to be interesting. I'm just kind of looking ahead at Crestwood and MFL Marmac. MFL Marmac returns their top rusher. MFL Marmac made the state tournament last year. Made the championship. Last year.
What was it? Starting running back last year, didn't he get hurt?
It was like their third string running back.
Yeah, backup came in and dropped like 200 yards.
Yeah, it was crazy. Crestwood returns Brock Vanya, a junior on the defensive side of the ball, leading tackler, and they return Aiden Skoda, a junior running back. They do lose their quarterback. I saw Clear Lake and Forest City. Forgot that we didn't mention Clear Lake. Just quick thing on Clear Lake. Thomas Meyer, going to be a dog. They lose their quarterback, so we'll have a new quarterback under the helm for Clear Lake. They bring back their running back. Keep an eye out for the Lions. That's all I have to say about that one.
One of the preseason favorites for a championship.
A lot of people. Yeah, a lot of people. Taking a look at Denver just real quick. Denver has a game against New Hampton. I was just seeing what Denver returned. Denver lost a lot, so they will not be the same this year.
Who was it McLaughlin? What was his last name? They had like a really good, I feel like
they had good defense. They had a good defense. I know that for sure. That was one of the teams that was like a standout kind of team. Mm-hmm. One team, Paul, I think that might take a step back is Central Lions kind of run coming to an end here, you think?
Yeah, I just feel like now they had D1 talent just flowing through Central Lion for a couple of years. Zach Lutmer, Reese Vanderzee, Graham Eben, but I feel like this year, at least from our eyes right now, we don't really see that level of talent back. Now they have been a good team for 4 years, 3 years, even longer. So we can't really just count them out, but their plus side is they return top 3 tacklers from last year. A lot of TFLs on that team too, but we'll have to see.
They play Emmitsburg, who I just want to see good again, man. Like, not many people know that they have the most championships out of anyone, or one of the most out of anyone. Harlan has the most, but they are top 3 in championships. Just looking at what Emmitsburg returns, they bring back their quarterback, who was just a sophomore last year. They lose their running back, so you got to figure that out. But they bring back their leading tackler, who was just a sophomore, and they bring back their top wide receiver. They didn't run the ball well, they didn't pass the ball well, but man, they had a good defense. They only lost by 2 to Sumner Fredericksburg in the first round of the playoffs, and we know how good the Cougars were. Their schedule lines up very favorable. I'm not sure what ELC returns, but we just talked about Central Lyon, so keep an eye on Emmitsburg. I think that'll be one to watch.
Yep.
Or go ahead.
With running back there, they return the other two rushers that they had
There you
right
go.
behind them. So Gavin Swanson right behind him had 500 yards around on the year with 9 touchdowns. So, and then Carson Back, their quarterback, can also scramble it. Or no, he was running back. So they returned 2 rushers, 3 rushers, 300 plus yards from last year. So they're a team to watch.
Owen Larson, the basketball star / baseball / all of the above. He is no longer at Esterville Lincoln Central. Tell me about this next DeJean boy, man. I mean, they just keep coming down the pipeline. Are we going to have, Bryson Kohler's back at quarterback for OABCIG? Brody Hanson is back to tackle position. I mean, could OABCIG make some noise again?
Yep. This is now Jax DeJean. There's a lot of people that don't even really know much about him yet. I am very firm that I think he's legit. He is huge for a freshman. Last year he was 6'4", 200, and I think he's up to 220 or 210. He's huge. He's bigger than DeJean was. And he seems to be every bit as athletic. We'll have to see how that progression goes. Obviously, you can't flat out say it, but this is a guy that I think can really light it up. Now, does he become quarterback? I know Bryson Kohler's coming back. Do they do the same thing with just get this athlete out here and let him just dominate or try and dominate by throwing and rushing the ball? We'll have to see. I know picks were a little high for Bryson Kohler last year, but hey, gunslinging, you don't see that much in 1A, so I'll take it. But that's a team I really think makes a lot of noise. Now, Jackson didn't have crazy stats last year by any means, but I think he's on the come up.
Van Meter and Underwood. Van Meter lost a lot. Could it be the end of a Van Meter little stint of dynasty runs? I don't think so. But Underwood lost a lot too. It's just they returned their quarterback, who ran for 41 touchdowns last year, passed for almost as many. This is a good game. I'm not underestimating Van Meter because it's Van Meter, but Underwood statistics lean the Eagles, it feels like.
Yeah, this will be a really interesting game just because you kind of have the interesting part of a really loaded kind of public school team coming back to play, a team that's private, that lost a bunch, but we know there's a dynasty. It's really tough to kind of call. One thing I will say, did you say 41 touchdowns?
I thought it was 41. Was that right?
Okay. No, he had 33 touchdowns.
Okay. I thought I saw 41.
41 touchdowns, I was about to question my quarterback rankings. I just came out
there you go.
Quite a bit there if he had 40. But he's obviously Garrett he's I believe committed to Iowa for baseball. Means he's gonna have crazy arm talent. And you just got to find people for him to get the rock to, which I think that's pretty simple for them to find. I don't think that's an awfully hard thing for a lot of schools to find. Van Meter, that's the big one. They lost Baumhover. They lost literally the guy that did it all for them, Ben Gordon. So it's going to be really interesting to see how they replenish. They usually are always good. Caleb Moore's back, I know. But it'll be really interesting to see kind of how this dynasty team kind of retools. I think you just have to call it a retool of Van Meter.
It is.
You can't really call rebuild years on Van Meter because they literally, we did this podcast 4 years ago, we probably would have had the same exact conversation with Billy. Who are they going to try and return and stuff? So,
right. The game just below it that I wanted to talk about, West Lyon and Sioux Center. I just wanted to talk about West Lyon real quick. This team's going to be good. Really good. Mm-hmm. Quarterback is back. Running back is back. Wide receiver is back. I mean, right up there with Spirit Lake. I'd put Spirit Lake and West Lyon in the title game right now. Lock my pick in. There it is. Bryson Childress is back at quarterback. He ran and passed for combined over 1,000 yards last year. Tate Houff is back at running back. Good receiving back. 18 touchdowns last year. Carson Hugavine is back. Keep an eye out for West Lyon. I know Sioux Center lost a bit, but West Lyon is going to be really good this year.
West Lyon, I feel like we're kind of seeing that transition of talent with Central Lyon and West Lyon, where West Lyon's back to being maybe the top dog in that area. I know West Lyon's been good. They never really fell off super hard. They've kind of been just a good team no matter what. But
State
now,
champs in the last
yeah, I
10
think
years?
at least really
In the last
close.
10 years, they've had, I swear they won a state championship.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they have. I feel like there's a name we're forgetting that was dominant at West Line. Barely lost to Spirit Lake last year in the quarterfinals on a Hail Mary. They barely lost to eventual state runner-up Central Line in a 7-0 just slugfest. So they're a team that's talented. They kind of blew out a lot of teams last year, so we'll have to see.
Right.
West Line plays OABCIG week 3. Noted.
Could be interesting. I know we're kind of talking about 2A, 1A because they're kind of all going together. We're just kind of going through the game.
Well,
The
week
classic.
1, there's like 15 mixed matchups from different classes.
Lot of different games thrown in there, so that's just something to think about. So we'll quote unquote go to 1A. Just kind of going down here, seeing if any games stand off the page. Columbus Catholic really will be interesting to watch this year simply because made it to the state tournament last year, which I think a lot of people are going to forget. I believe, I don't know what they return, actually. I don't know.
Miles Gardner, they return, who was a pretty good wide receiver for them. But other than that, they lose Parker, or I'll just say Parker because that last name is about to be butchered. He had 1,500 yards and 17 touchdowns last year. And they lose Carter Lockert, who was a really good quarterback last year for them, 2,300 yards and 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions with a high 70% completion percentage, which is for high school quarterbacks, that's pretty ridiculously high. But Miles Gardner is kind of their guy returning right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I think your 1A favorite, we have a great one, Grundy Center and Dike New Hartford. Grundy Center got finally 2 years ago, broke through, won that state title after just falling short so many years in a row. And then last year did it again. Lost to Dike New Hartford last year in the opener, if I am correct.
Nope. They won. It was like
it was a 7-6 game. That's what it was.
Yeah,
that was
7-6.
Because
Dike New Hartford, I know, is the team that had the silly defense.
Yes, that's what it was. I'm looking through their scores. Dike New Hartford's the favorite. Heavy favorite for Class 1A. Colin Meester, junior quarterback, now a senior, is back. 1,013 yards, 8 touchdowns. Just kind of did what he did. Noah Borcherding, 991 yards, 10 touchdowns. He's back. Wide receiver, Devin Lotz, he's back. Top tackler, Jack Severson, he's back. I like the Wolverines here. If that defense was that good last year, I mean, we're in for something this year if the offense can figure it out.
This is a team that just like we talked about last year as a team that we knew would upset teams because of how good that defense is, and it's going to keep games close and make them sloppy. That was their thing last year. They made games sloppy. I mean, we can go down it. 6-7, they lose to Grundy Center. 9-7, they lose to West Branch. 14-8, they beat.
That was the stat. We're like, you're 0-2 and you've only given up like 13 points.
Yep. And Osage, they lose by 1 point. Now, give Grundy Center their credit. They rematched in the playoffs and they dropped 40 on them and shut them out. But I think this year, this is a team to really pay attention to in 1A. They have all the makings to be really good. They return a crazy amount of talent on both sides. It's kind of one of those things. It's a little bit more unproven talent than just we know you're going to be 100% best team. We'll have to kind of watch these couple weeks to start. Now, Grundy Center, we know they've kind of pieced together a run here where
they do bring back Tieran Volks. Volks comes back at wide receiver. He was like top 5 in the class in receiving touchdowns. So I mean, they didn't lose everything. That's for sure.
Yep. They're kind of become a team where we have to kind of respect how good they've been over the past couple of years and give them the benefit of the doubt that they could be really good this year still. But yeah, 1A, I mean, kind of looking good. 1A is interesting where there's just kind of a lot of teams, like who's going to pull away.
I'm just kind of looking at, like, I'm on the stats page, just kind of seeing who returns. Wilton returns Owen Hassel, junior running back, now a senior. He had 20 touchdowns last year. Nick Seversik, a junior, South Hamilton. He comes back, 20 touchdowns. Luke Sternberg, who was like top 5 in all-purpose yards last year in Class 1A, he comes back for AHSTW. So, I mean, there's a lot. Sumner Fredericksburg last year, if you remember, Davis Van Sickle got hurt late in the year, and that's what really led to Columbus Catholic getting to the state tournament. Noah Henderson, that was the running back for that team. He was very talented. He comes back. So there's a lot on the table for a lot of these teams that, yes, there are guys high up, but I think could be some interesting teams that sneak through. I think Red Oak could be interesting. Adam Bayer is a really good defensive player and on the offensive side of the ball. So I don't know. I really think 1A is up for grabs in a big way. I'm just kind of looking through what else. North Lynn and Alburnett. What does North Lynn bring back this year? That's always a good game. North Lynn and Alburnett.
North Lynn and Alburnett is usually.
Let's see. North Lynn lost pretty much a lot. Drew Rees is back on defense, 87 tackles last year. And Alburnett,
they got quarterback returning. I know they're kind of a running. I feel like.
Oh, wow. Lakin Caves, a freshman running back last year.
That might be wrong. That could be wrong with that class.
Could be. But Shaden Washburn, lead tackle is coming back.
Yeah, they return quite a bit.
All right.
Offensively, defensively, holy cow, they return like most of their
yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of good games there. Let's go to Class A because I kind of wanted to talk about Woodbury Central a little bit once we get to them. Columbus, Mediapolis, week 1. I'm just thinking those are two teams that have been pretty good the last couple of years for sure. Danville, Linville, Sully. I know Danville returns a dog at running back. I need to check on that while we're on it. Let's see.
Jaden Bauer?
Yes.
No, not Jaden Bauer.
Oh, he's the quarterback. Yeah, they returned their quarterback. That's who it is. So that's big for them. Really,
everywhere receiving.
Did they return a lot everywhere?
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, leading tackler. They returned another a top 4 tackler.
So Danville could be interesting this year because we know Linville Sully lost a lot. That was a good senior class.
Yep, they got bit with that injury bug. That sucked for them.
Yep. West Hancock, defending state champions. I don't think they're going to win it this year. They lost a lot. I know they returned their leading tackler, but Mitchell Smith, he's gone. I mean, they're one of those schools that just kind of rebuilds, or retools. But I just don't know. This year, it just feels like it's going to have to be one of those gap years, you know?
Yeah, maybe just like a year where they're just solid, but not as good as they really are used to being.
How are we feeling about Madrid? Madrid takes on Woodward Granger. A lot of people are high on the Tigers, especially after making the Dome last year. Madrid should be pretty good.
Yeah, Madrid. A lot of people have really high because of the man himself, Preston and Wicker. He had a ridiculous year last year of 2,000, 300 plus yards, along with 39 touchdowns. So he was ridiculous last year. Now, talent around him returning is low, but he was kind of just a one-man wrecking crew last year. So we'll have to see how that looks for them. I know Woodward Granger and them have been a really good game. I know last year that was in 28-27. Yep. We'll have to see. Let's check Woodward Granger real quick.
I don't know. Yeah, I'm not sure who they
had a sophomore that played quite a bit of quarterback for them. He's their second string, but it looks like he probably played quite a bit. So he's coming back. That's good for them. So this game could return all 3 wide receivers.
Huge.
And a good amount of defense, it looks like. So this will be a good one. I'd probably give Woodward kind of the benefit of the doubt right now, just because they return quite a bit more. It just depends on how good of a senior season Preston Wicker's going to have. Is he going to have –
and his supporting cast.
Yeah. Is he going to either kind of put up the same exact season, or is he going to put up an even better one, which would be ridiculous because that was already a crazy season.
I'm just kind of looking through everyone else here, just kind of looking at returners. Anybody that's standing off the page for me personally, I think interceptions leader Nash Dykes, out of Central Decatur. He returns, had 10
Ooh, I want to talk
interceptions last
about
year.
actually Earlham. Earlham returns quite a bit.
Really? Tell me about Earlham.
They returned Blake Reynolds at quarterback.
Oh, yeah.
That wasn't like that's not a big factor in they're not a passing oriented team. But they do return Caleb Smith, who posted 1,200 yards last year and 23 touchdowns as well. After that, it's a little bit less. They do return. I mean, Caleb Smith was big on defense for them too, and they get a couple other returners. But that's a team that could be pretty good or sneaky good. And then Central Decatur, it'll be interesting to see how good they are. I know they have a really good lineman that went to Wyoming. Kicking myself for not remember his name. I'll get it.
Are you talking Matthew Foltz? Is that it?
No, it's Tariq Miller. He's going to Wyoming. Yep. It was killing me. I can't remember.
I'm just looking at sack returners. Carter Wilgenbush out of East Buchanan, 10.5 sacks. You can never count out East Buchanan. They made it to the Dome a couple of years ago. Yep. Total tackle leader in the state in Class A. Gavin Sleezer returns for Alta Aurelia. And then Cole Hobbs, freshman last year, freshman out last year out of St. Albert, 87 tackles. So I don't know. It's going to be a fun week one for Class A. Just kind of looking through some of these games. Trainer St. Albert, it's going to be fun. Northland Alburnett is going to be a lot of fun. AHSTW, based off what they return. Tri-Center could be a good one. So a lot of really fun games in Class A. We'll jump down to 8-player. So keep an eye on Central Decatur and Earlham. That'll be a good game. So, yeah, we'll jump down to 8-player.
Oh, yeah.
Bedford takes on Moravia. Moravia lost last week. I'm pretty sure Bedford lost most of that team from last year that went to the state tournament.
Yeah, they did.
Okay. They were just that was just a one-off year. That was just everything fell into place and
that just kind of worked. Those years are beautiful.
What are we thinking of Bondurant? Or not Bondurant. What are we thinking of Cam? Chase Speaker is back for his senior year. Montezuma, Brady Bolton is back. A lot of young kids came back. Easton Valley, Keegan Lee back at quarterback.
I mean,
he's 32.
We're talking a player that won't show up maybe on those stats, but we know is going to be putting up stupid numbers in 8-man this year is Landon Bloom, 4-star wide receiver that's an 8-man right now.
Out of Woodbine.
That kid, out of Woodbine. He's going to have – Woodbine would be my sleeper team right now to have a really good year because they return quarterback, they return running back, they return Landon Bloom, and all their wide receivers. And that schedule is pretty favorable. I know we're looking ahead here, but week 7, they play Remsen St. Mary's. That game will be a huge in 8-player.
Easton Valley went 2-7 last year, but they had sophomore at quarterback, freshman at running back, sophomore at receiver, sophomore lead tackler, and sophomore at running back or receiver. So I'd keep an eye on Easton Valley. I think they'll be fun to watch.
And we obviously have to mention Remsen St. Mary's.
Yes,
it's going to be really good.
Talk about Remsen.
They're the number 1 team returning, and almost consensus, I'd say, everyone's opinion. They return Landon Waldschmidt at quarterback, who posted a ridiculous year of 37 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions. They get Keaton Harpenu back also as well, who was good for them. And then Colin Holman at receiving, I think, at tight end. So they return all 3 wide receivers, all running backs, quarterback, and then they also return 1, 2, 3, like their entire defense. They lose, I think, 2 or 3 starters on their defense. So we know they return basically a whole team and this team was not bad by any means last year. This team lost to Bishop Garrigan in a crazy game that was 28 or 21-18, and that's the team that went and won it. So this is a team that everyone's going to be looking at.
I'll tell you one game, Cam Audubon is going to be phenomenal. Cam brings back Chase Speaker. Audubon brings back their leading tackler, Austin Christensen, with 90 tackles. And then they bring back their quarterback, who was also their leading rusher, Aaron Olson. So I think Audubon can be fun. What do the defending state champions return? Bishop Garrigan. Now we know Bishop Garrigan's huge.
Yep.
So I'm just checking.
Big one.
Okay, they bring back quarterback.
Tate Force, he threw 21 touchdowns and 2 picks last year. He was really good last year.
Did they
touchdowns on the ground as well?
Was it the running back or was a lineman? Who I think about that just dominated at the Dome? I
Running
can't
back
really
Caden
remember.
Roethlisberger had a really good year, 1,300 yards and 22 tutties.
Yeah,
But they do lose quite a bit. Now, there's always the talk here. They're an 8-man team, but they technically have a lot of people
it's a
that they
1A.
can
It's a
play.
Class A school. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah, they're putting in a lot of people in 8 that can fill those gaps that they lose. So it'll be interesting. They're probably a team I suspect. I just have to give it to them. I think they'll be good. Like I don't really. You
yeah.
could just kind of look at them without even looking at their roster. I know they'll probably have a really good year this year. It just depends. Is it state championship good or does a team dethrone them? I know Rims and St. Mary's going to be really circling the calendar for
Right.
that rematch potentially.
I think we might need to change our 8-player game of the week to Cam Ottoman. But right now, our game of the week in 8-player is Don Bosco and Gladbrook Rhinebeck. If you want, pull up Gladbrook Rhinebeck. I got Don Bosco stuff. They lose Caden Kanak. Big loss for them. They fell short to Winfield Mount Union in the quarterfinals of the playoffs. Winfield Mount Union, by the way, will not. They'll be interesting, to say the least, but they lose a lot of what worked for them. Ben Ballou comes back at receiving / rushing for Don Bosco, but they lose their quarterback. They do bring back their top tackler, Kyler Kanak. And then Gladbrook Rhinebeck, I know they lost their quarterback, but did they lose other?
Not really. They get Hudson Clark back, who was big time for them last year. They returned 2 of the top 3 tacklers, and one of them put up 40 TFLs. That's 8-man for you. So Hudson Clark was really good for them last year. He had 700 yards receiving and then did it on defense as well. So they'll be an interesting team to now competing state title wise. That's maybe a bit of a stretch, but we'll have to see. I mean, play the games.
Yeah. We need to keep an eye on Glidden Ralston and Woodbine, week 1 as well. Kobe Wallace returns for Glidden Ralston. Ran for over 1,200 yards last year. Didn't really pass the ball a ton, but he is back. And their lead tackler comes back as well. And you already talked about Woodbine.
Yeah.
And Glidden Ralston won that game last year by just 4 points. So I think that could be a good game as well.
Yeah, 100%.
Just kind of looking through the rest of these, Tripola and Key could be interesting. Remsen St. Mary's and Harris Lake Park. I think someone messaged us on Facebook and was like, why don't you talk about Harris Lake Park more? Let's see what Harris Lake Park returns.
I think I've checked this before. I don't think
Harris Lake Park
might be
lost everything. Lucas Arnsdorf gone, Devin Meyer gone. Their top 2 guys are gone, so that's tough for them. But you never know. I think that could be interesting. Easton Valley, New London. Just checking real quick how New London did. Easton Valley already said I think could be a very interesting team. New London returns. Okay. Gavin Menke Bailey did everything. Tackle leader, top rusher, top thrower, Kale Westerbeck. All right. So New London could be interesting.
Baxter is a team that's interesting. I know they're 1-0 technically already, but
yes, Baxter is high-powered, and Springville's not a bad team. I mean, that's a good week 1 win for them.
That's a tough week 0 game.
Yes.
Well, man, week 0, I like it, but it's usually kind of a warm-up game for at least when we did it in the higher classes. Like, it's usually a game that isn't like a barn burner. It's usually kind of a blowout.
Montezuma Southeast Warren will be very good. Jamison Ewing was a sophomore last year. He's now a junior at quarterback. He returns. Robert Beardsley, he comes back at the receiving end, and the Trey Fisher, also a total tackler. Basically, what I'm seeing is 8 players stacked this week. My goodness. Yeah. It is going to be a fun year.
Returns a lot, and I feel like a lot of it was really young. I mean, we haven't even talked about Iowa Valley.
Oh, yeah. You want to quickly go over Iowa Valley? Iowa Valley plays Lone Tree. I don't think Lone Tree. I'll see. But Iowa Valley, realistically, if that defense can show up, I think they'll be interesting.
I mean, they have Nolan Kriegel who dropped 10 touchdowns. We kind of talked briefly about him, but he was really good as a freshman last year even. And then they returned Caleb Hack as well and Owen Braille at wide receiver and return a good amount of defense, say probably about 4 or 5 starters. And remember, it's 8 men, so that's actually a pretty good amount. So
Lone Tree lost their quarterback, but they returned Emmett Burke at receiving. on the receiving side, and Brody Magruder, their top tackler on defense. And Lone Tree beat Springville last year. They beat Eastern Valley, obviously. Fell short to Moravia, who Moravia lost a lot this past year. So I don't know, man. I think 8 players is going to be a lot of fun. I think we'll have our picks out on Friday for our games of the week. Sounds like our games of the week might change up just a little bit. I really wanted to put you on the spot, Paul, and be like, all right, let's pick a way too early champion for each class.
I can maybe do that for 5A. It gets really hard.
Let's do it. Let's throw the cards out. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to give our way too early off the top of our head who's going to win in each class. Let me pull up standings just to be sure real quick. So that way I'm not, messing up the schools here. So we'll start with 5A. Give us just like a brief thing. Who's winning 5A? We'll forget we ever said these things.
Hopefully,
you don't even have to pick the top 4.
Will forget.
You don't even have to pick the top 4. Just pick your champion, and we'll just kind of go from there.
All right. My champion preseason for 5A, I have to go Valley. I think that returning talent is too much to overlook, and I don't think there's a clear other team that is there returning-wise. Now, it's 5A. There's going to be tons of talent that we don't know about even yet that comes in is really good. But I think that's the pick I have to go with right now. I mean, my next ones will be Ankeny, Waukee will be really good this year. That's probably about like it. Kennedy is there. We'll have to see if they break that Eastern Iowa drought.
Eastern Iowa, man.
Yeah,
can't do it. I'll go with Valley too. I was going to say Valley. It's a safe pick. it's a safe pick
that you kind of have to make. If you're not making that pick, you're probably a fan of the team. So,
all right, I'll go with Valley. Part of me thinks maybe we should do top 4. Just makes it interesting.
I'm not like dying to.
No, I'm not going to die on the hill. This is just like way off the top what we got. So here, I'll give you my 4. I think Valley makes it. I do think Kennedy makes it. I think Kennedy makes it to the Dome. I'm going to go Valley, Kennedy, Dowling, and Ankeny. Let me write these down. So I have them.
I'm writing mine down. That's why I was doing right then. I know we haven't touched on it. I do want to note Cedar Falls will be kind of interesting this year. They do return some interesting pieces on the line, and they have Leighton Wolf coming in at quarterback, who is 6'7". We have a new JJ Cole at quarterback. So
is he playing basketball?
Probably. He's probably really good at basketball because that's how that family works.
Oh, I have to bring it up. If you guys haven't seen it, Grundy Center has a 6'7" girl playing volleyball. It blew my mind. It absolutely blew my mind. The video of her, Grundy Center, okay, I just had to say it. Grundy Center has a 6'7" girl playing volleyball. It's insane.
I got my 4. I think I'm gonna go Valley. That was obviously my championship pick. Ankeny, I think makes it. It's a homer pick, but that returning talent, a lot of people are even saying they could win it apparently. But that's a team I think has a pretty good shot of making it. I am going to agree with you. I think Kennedy breaks that drought. I do think they're good enough this year to get in an Eastern Iowa only sub-state. Now that's kind of been a thing recently is an Eastern Iowa team.
There'll be one Central Iowa team that goes over there. Yeah.
Yep. There hasn't been Eastern Iowa team yet good enough to beat like one of the CIML teams that kind of just limps through the season because they play such a tough schedule and then can beat them. We saw it with Valley like multiple times, I think. And then I'm going to say Waukee. I think Waukee is returning a good amount of talent. I have a huge question mark for Waukee. It's the receiving core. Beckett is a more than capable quarterback, but that receiving core needs to produce for him. We know Evan Jacobson is probably the most highly touted recruit right now at tight end for them. It'll be really interesting. I like that. I like kind of sneaking them in there. But it's a tier. It's a tier of kind of Valley and Ankeny returning wise, and then maybe Kennedy, and then you kind of got some question marks a lot.
All right. I wrote yours down just so I have it. So this is where it gets bad. Part of me thinks, we need the clicks. We should make a graphic of what we're saying here and just throw it out there after tomorrow. I feel like we have to just to say it. That'll get good clicks. 4A. Let me get it out of the way. Lewis Central. Give me Lewis Central. I think Lewis Central makes it to the Dome, so I must put Lewis Central. Oh boy, here we go. Give me Waverly Shell Rock. Are you agreeing with me on those two? Can we agree on those two?
Yes.
All right, so we'll get
I was
that out of the
wondering
way.
if you're going to pull the trigger on that Waverly Shell Rock.
Yep, I'll go Waverly Shell Rock. Oh boy. Brother. Gilbert.
I don't know.
You agree?
I kind of agree.
Hang on.
This
I
is
got right.
just so the people know that watching this is the hard. Like I've done this for 3 years. This is the hardest class prediction I've probably ever done. Like,
well, and you got to think, you know how hard it is to predict top 4. Like, it's not easy by any means.
Champion usually can be pretty easy to just predict, as usually one team at least that's going to be really good. But yeah, I got my 4.
Okay, what's your 4th team? Let me hear it.
It's Xavier. I think they just
that's
replenish enough to make
pick, man.
Yeah, that's it. It's the safe pick of the teams that I would have to pick up, because right now I'm looking at Decorah, North Scott somehow.
Decorah is a good pick. Let me see. What does Decorah return? That's a good pick.
I would say Ballard isn't a long
That's what I'm saying. I was thinking Ballard for a second. Like,
I mean, if I was being really bold, I would have put Ballard in over Xavier. I just think Xavier's gonna somehow be really good this year.
I'm thinking Decorah or Ballard.
Norwalk isn't a bad team.
No, but they
and Robbins
quarterback.
Yeah, but they've kind of just figured it out at quarterback the past couple of years.
Boy, I like Ballard.
Go with
what does Indianola return? Indianola probably doesn't return.
They don't return much. I've checked, because when I was trying to do top 10 rankings, this was hell. I checked like 50 teams. I swear I checked the entire class.
Give me Decorah. I like Decorah.
I like it. I don't hate it.
So I got Lewis Central, Waverly Shell Rock, Gilbert, Decorah. And you is that pretty much the same as what you had?
Yeah, but I had Xavier.
Okay, Xavier. Ballard, I wasn't going to give up on you, but people are going to see the graphic that we're going to make for this, because we are going to make a graphic for this, and they're going to be like, what? That's the thing. If I would have put Ballard, they would have gone out and lost week 1. I'm helping Ballard. I'm really helping Ballard.
There you go.
But man, they return a lot, so I really like that. All right, Class 3A. It's just going to get so rough as we go.
I got this one, I think.
Well, actually, I think I got this one.
I got this one. I can go if you want.
Go ahead. Yeah.
I got Williamsburg making it back.
Yep. Okay.
I got Solon.
Down. I got that. Yep.
I've got Solon probably being the 1 seed, in my opinion. I've got Algona making it.
Okay.
With Alex Mansky, I think they have a really good year. And then I have Clear Lake.
Okay. I am going to go.
There are some teams there's like, this is a good class.
It's a good class. This is really
I can pick out teams here.
Buddy. Sorry, Nevada. I don't think this year. Give me Williamsburg, Solon, West Delaware.
There you go. Yeah, I was waiting.
And Algona.
Yep. That's a good group.
Yeah, okay.
I hope
I
picked them last
confident. So. All right, here's where it goes to the fan. 2A. Underwood. Let me throw Underwood in there real quick.
Are they in 2A, right?
Well, no, I lied. Sorry. I'm ahead of myself.
I couldn't remember. They are kind of a team I feel like.
Oh, man. West Lyon.
I've got 2, yeah.
Okay, I got West Lyon. I'm going to throw West Lyon in there. Who do you got? Who's your – or Spirit Lake. Spirit Lake. Throw Spirit Lake in there. I literally said that was going to be the championship game, so.
Yep. Right. I've got my 4. Yeah, are you just kind of list? Did you just list those 2?
Yeah, good. Give your last 2, or give your 4.
Yeah, I have Spirit Lake, West Lyon. I think you just said those. I have PCM making it back.
Let's talk about PCM real quick.
They returned Adrian Robbins.
Joey Hyde will be listening. He wants to hear about PCM.
Adrian Robbins, really good. Returning, and they also returned Gavin Van Gort. I'm pretty high on this team. I probably should have gone out of my way to mention them.
I'll throw in PJ.
By the way, it says Adrian Robbins is a freshman.
That's not right.
But he's going to be really good. They also return Trenner Van Dyke.
Okay. Who's your 4th team?
Van Meter. I simply can't. You can't have Van Meter not in your top 4 because of what they've done in the past, 8 years?
Yeah.
They can't not have them there. I know it's a boring pick. There's probably a sleeper team that could have been cool. Like Kemper maybe would be a cool team to throw in there. But
oh gosh, I don't know, man.
It's tough.
Give me Western Christian with Caden Van Regenmorter coming back at quarterback, and I know they returned their wide receiver, so give me Western Christian. Could end up probably playing West Lyon like they always do, but give me Western Christian. Oh boy, we're gonna get so much flack. All right,
I'm not looking at the comments. It's fine.
We'll turn them on. 1A, Dyke New Hartford. Let's both write it down. Easy, chalk.
That's a good Hartford. Class. I don't hate
it. It is a very good class. So Dyke New Hartford.
For sure, MFL loses like everyone, right?
Just our longest podcast episode, by the way, but I think it's good.
Preseason.
Underwood. Do we both agree on that?
Yep. We're 2 for 2.
Give me Alburnett.
You
don't agree on that one?
No, I'm just looking at this team.
I'll go Alburnett, and then give me what does Regina return?
That's just the team I was looking at because I know Tay Wallace is back.
They bring back their running back. That's it.
Man, that's
Gentry
tough.
Dumont is not really here anymore.
You know what? Screw it. I'll be bold. This is so bold.
South Hamilton.
This is similar to your Valor pick. You didn't even pick them, but this is similar. Hold on, let me check Pella Christian.
Pella Christian. Oh, I don't know, man. I don't know what they return. I've heard some things about Pella Christian that I feel like maybe it could be a rebuilding year.
Okay, yeah, I don't see much returning. I'm gonna throw it in there. Emmitsburg. Screw it.
You I was gonna do that. I saw it, man. And I'm like, that's it. I was like, that's the pick right there, Emmitsburg. Dang it. I feel yeah.
Us matching on Emmitsburg is gonna look rough on that graphic because that is a pick. That's a really cool pick.
Yeah, I'll go Emmitsburg.
It's similar to me saying like, I don't even know. Ames for 5. I don't know.
You remember last year I had Greene County? You remember that?
Yeah, I do
so high on Greene County, and they just did not do it. So
they weren't the team.
They weren't the team. All right, Class A.
Oh God, this one looks rough. I'm not going.
Madrid.
Yes,
if they can make it last year, they can make it this year. Madrid.
Woodbury.
Did we say Woodbury Central lost a lot? Didn't they?
Yes. I feel like
St. Ansgar. What did St. Ansgar return?
Not quarterback. Right? Yeah, not quarterback.
They lost everything.
They're
let's see.
Good.
Oh gosh,
it's a tough one. Yeah, no, this is really tough.
This is not good. Earlham.
I literally, bro. Please let me have that sleeper pick.
All right, you take Earlham. Give me. Let me check Danville again.
Oh yeah, I forgot.
Is it the year
Columbus,
of the Bears?
Columbus. What about
Columbus? Oh yeah, Columbus. I'm gonna put Columbus in that. Yeah.
Oh,
let me check the Bears real quick.
Oh,
Danville went 4-5 last year. I'm gonna go Danville. They return a lot.
Do they?
Oh, gosh.
We talked about
this class looks wild.
This is okay. This is equally as hard as 4A.
What does Wapsie Valley return? Their quarterback, and that's it.
That's
Denver. Denver, we talked about.
This has got to return some studs, right?
Who?
Oh, Lisbon.
Oh yeah,
Okay. Lisbon.
Lisbon.
I feel like it's kind of bold, but they
Let me
return
see what
quarterback
Lisbon.
others.
Lisbon plays Durant, Columbus,
Is
Danville,
Starman a team?
Northland, East Buchanan. Oh my. Yeah, I mean Dakota Clark comes back. That's big.
Come on.
Oh gosh, man,
Come
I
on,
don't know who my.
Starman.
Do you have all four of your schools? I got Madrid, Columbus, Danville. Did you put? Who are your four?
I do not yet. Hold on. I have 3 out of 4.
Hang on, let me look at returners here. I'm gonna throw something at the wall and maybe it'll stick. Let's see here.
Give me Central Decatur.
Did you put Earlham?
Yep.
Okay. Who'd you just say?
Central Decatur.
Okay. It's not a bad one.
At
I'm
least
gonna check this team real quick
down.
and see. They need a quarterback. Dang it. Let me hang on. I'm checking another team. I was checking Riverside for a second.
That's a tough class. Holy cow. That's insane. I was not expecting that one to be that hard. OABC.
They were so good last year. Give me ACGC.
Wow.
Fell just short to Madrid in the.
Did they return?
Yes.
Did they return a good amount?
Jathan South, their quarterback, comes back. They don't. Their leading tackler and receiver don't come back, but I like to think that they have a good chance. And the schedule is fair. Boy, they play Earlham week 2, but the rest of the schedule seems like it's fair. So
there you go. Last year, I think they were kind of one of those teams we were waiting on them to play a good team. So
yes, yeah. All right, 8-player.
I think 8-player will be way easier than
really.
Yes.
All right, give me. Oh gosh. Are you sure?
I'm cruising.
Give me Remsen. Remsen St. Mary's.
I got mine 4.
What?
I was cruising there.
Who are you going with?
I have kind of a sleeper team I'm really high on because I went on a rant on them already. Woodbine, I think, makes it. I think Cam makes it. And I think Bishop Garrigan makes it. Again.
Man, after seeing Bishop Garrigan last year, that's a good pick.
Clarksville, what do they got?
Well, they lost. That's the only downside. I don't know. They lost in week 1.
Oh, they did. Shoot, that'll do it.
Oh gosh, dude, I'm gonna be swinging at the fences here.
I don't know. I mean, I think there's 2 schools. I think Remsen and Bishop. You can probably
really. You think Bishop can go back?
I don't know. I feel like they're kind
of.
Throwing at Baxter. Why not?
Well, I thought about that, and then. Okay, I had Baxter. I'm gonna switch Baxter out. I'm gonna go Bishop Garrigan because you've forced it. Oh gosh, let me just check one more time. Make sure I'm not going crazy. Who these guys return?
What about Audubon or whatever?
Well, I was thinking about it. I'm gonna go Remsen, Bishop Garrigan, Easton Valley, and Glidden Ralston. Glidden Ralston's going to have their Bedford year. There we go.
There you go.
All right, so let's quickly recap. For 5A, I have Valley, Kennedy, Dowling, Ankeny. And you have?
Valley, Ankeny, Kennedy, Waukee.
Okay. For 4A, I have Lewis Central, Waverly Shell Rock, Decorah, and Gilbert.
And I have Lewis Central, Waverly Shell Rock, Xavier, and Gilbert. Gilbert being
they're gonna love us. That's the thing when this post goes out tomorrow. They are gonna either love us or hate us.
Yep.
3A, Williamsburg, Solon, West Delaware, Algona.
Williamsburg, Solon, Algona, Clear Lake.
Okay. You're just high on the recruits.
Yep.
2A, West Lion, Spirit Lake, PCM, Western Christian.
I have Spirit Lake, West Lion, PCM, Van Meter.
All right.
I am
that Western Christian pick. That's going to kill me. I guarantee it.
The green
1A, Dyke, New Hartford, Underwood, Alburnett, Emmitsburg.
I have Underwood, OABCIG, Dyke, New Hartford, Emmitsburg.
Class A, Madrid, Columbus, Danville, ACGC. That would be an insane Final Four.
And I have Madrid, Earlham, Lisbon, Central Decatur.
Dang. So that's our biggest. That's our biggest.
That's our
Class
what
A
A.
is tough. And then 8-player, I have Remsen, Bishop Garrigan, Easton Valley, and Glidden Ralston.
I have Remsen, Woodbine, Cam, Bishop Garrigan.
And let it be known for the people that think like we watch every single team. I have no idea how big these teams are. Half of these teams could walk out on the field and I'll be like, dang, that's not a state championship team. Like when Bishop Garrigan walked out on the field at the Unidome, you're like, they're winning it all.
Yeah,
there's no way they're not winning it all. So, I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I'm going to be watching a lot of film this year on all these classes.
Yeah, so. I am too. I'm not calling a game this Friday. I'll be watching. I think Jack is going to try to do a live show again. I might hop on that. So there'll be a lot going on. I know you'll be doing graphic work, but Paul, this is our longest episode by far. An hour and 40 minutes is about to be an hour and 41 minutes. We started this thing at like 9:30. So late into the evening here on this Wednesday. We'll post this tomorrow, aka Thursday. We'll get our graphic up for our Final Four picks for Paul and I, and we will get roasted for it to Kingdom Come, but that's just kind of how it is. We won't turn comments off. We'll just not look. But I'm excited to see what happens. Thursday, we do have some Thursday games, so keep an eye out for that. I think the big game that everyone's going to be wanting to watch, Perry takes on Des Moines Hoover. That one's going to be on WHO. That's at Mediacom Stadium. Just a good story all throughout. Perry, after what happened this past school year, Des Moines Hoover, going to be a fun team, just watching them grow. So make sure to tune into that one. That's going to be a fun one on WHO. So, yeah, Paul, that will do it for us. We will be back next week to recap everything. I guarantee one of these teams on our list is going to lose that we just put, and we'll be like, well, throw it out the window. But
what if
we appreciate
the season?
That's true. That's true. It's week one. Like everybody else make these picks, and it's just like when a college will get posted and they're like, oh, why didn't you post about my, like everybody has their own thing. But we appreciate everyone's opinions. We can't wait. Yeah, we can't wait to see what everyone thinks. And so that will do it for us. Enjoy our new outro / intro music. He's Paul Ayers, John Blake Walker. Watching and listening to Bound to Talk Football. We'll see you next week. Thanks for watching.